Will Wade has a gig back at the Power 5 level, Andy. Guaranteed to be some strong offers.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. Happy Friday, everybody. We're your host. That's Andy Patton. I'm Isaac Schade, and you're joining us at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making us your first listener watch of the day. We want to remind you can catch every episode ad-free on Amazon Music. Special shout out to all the everydayers joining us and, of course, all the great members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord. We're so glad you're all here. Coming up on the show today, we're getting to that point now where the tournament's done and we start paying attention to all this offseason stuff. So yesterday's show, if you didn't catch it, Andy and our guy Leaf Tulane did some great stuff in the transfer portal. And today we're going to begin turning our attention now to the coaching carousel, Andy, which is going to make me sick because literally last time I was around a carousel, my son had to get out of line because he was ready to chunk. And so I feel nauseous even talking about it. So what we're going to do, Andy, is take a look at our favorite Power 5 incoming coaches, our favorite non-Power 5 coaching hires of the cycle. And then we're going to wrap things up, just taking a look at the land of the battle for Atlanta specifically, and how that kind of maybe is starting to spell the end of traditional MTEs. We'll get all into that later on. But Andy, we are going to start at the Power 5 level, where we've had coaching movement across all 5 of the Power 5 conferences: ACC, Big 12, Big East, Big 10, and the SEC. My question to you is, who are you going with as your favorite?
Yeah, first of all, I think the good news for you, Isaac, is that the carousel is probably spinning a lot slower now than it was, because, and there's a larger conversation to be had perhaps further in the offseason about the
timing.
Yeah, the speed in which programs are moving to make their hires and how it's impacting. I mean, obviously the Kevin Willard situation, going from Maryland to Villanova and everything that happened there. And Jay Lucas leaving Duke before the NCAA tournament even began to take over at Miami, which has gone very well in the sense that they've brought in Trey Donaldson and Malik Reneau and a really phenomenal class. And it's just odd. And honestly, it leads well into who I want to talk about, another coach who made the announcement and left his program while they were he didn't leave while they were still in the NCAA tournament, but Will Wade, who's now at NC State, was coaching at McNeese when it was announced that he was going to take over at NC State. And they went into a game against Clemson kind of knowing, hey, next year I'm going to be coaching against you twice, Mr. Brownell, because I'm going to be in the conference. And it was just this kind of weird, this didn't
maybe unbalanced schedule. We'll see if it's twice.
Yeah, well, right. Okay, touche. As I said that, I was like, I don't know if the ACC actually is guaranteed it too, but whatever.
This ain't no Big East, Andy. What are you doing over here?
Right, not the Big East. But it's one of those things where this didn't used to happen like this. The timing didn't, and I get why. It's very obvious why. Like I don't really blame NC State. I don't really blame Will Wade. I think he handled it better than a lot of the other coaches did, where he said, hey, this is happening. I'm gonna be forthright and honest about it, but I'm still here. I'm still coaching this team type of deal. And they, as a 12 seed, they upset Clemson, the 5 seed. And then they played a tough Purdue team. They lost that game, I think 14 or so. It wasn't super close, but they were decently competitive for large chunks of that game. And certainly for Coach Wade and McNeese, at least they were able to kind of exercise the demons of last year when they were a 12 seed and a really trendy pick to be an upset. And they got smashed by Gonzaga, who I think was up like 20 in the first half of that game. This year, at least they got that W. They got a win. They advanced into the round of 32. And really the reason I'm excited about this hire for NC State is pretty simple. Will Wade just wins basketball games. Like, the man is exceptional at winning. He's got a win rate over 70% for his career. That includes stops at Chattanooga, stop at VCU, obviously his stop at LSU, which was what got him in trouble. Hence the strong offers comments from Isaac earlier. And then, of course, the McNeese job, and then he was suspended for the first 10 games at McNeese, but he served his time. He's in an era now where some of the stuff that he was accused of isn't really as problematic, and NC State needed to make a change. Kevin Keatts, we know he just took him to that Final Four run, not this past season, but the previous season. But outside of that, hasn't had a lot of success. And NC State was did not respond well this most recent season after going to that Final Four run. They lost a lot of talent, but they just did not look good this year. Kevin Keatts kind of reverted back to running the offense that didn't work very well in the regular season. They had made some changes to their offensive style and then went on that Final Four run and then reverted back. And the fan base, I think, was just completely ready to be done. This is a great hire for NC State. I'm excited about their future, potentially bringing back some, bringing that third team into the mix in the Duke Carolina battle in North Carolina, because they haven't really been a part of that in a while outside of that one miracle run. And I think they're going to be a lot more consistently competitive under Coach Will Wade. And we're in an era where it may not take that long to turn it around. Like, he might be able to turn this thing around soon. So far, he's only brought in 2 transfers, and they're both following him from McNeese to NC State. That's Kadir Copeland and Alan Breed. They have quite a few players in the portal. So he's got some work to do, but I wouldn't be surprised if this team's competing at the top half of the ACC very soon.
Yeah, and Kadir Copeland coming back to the ACC, right? He went to McNeese from the ACC, and so I mean, this isn't just some rando McNeese players coming with him. These are good dudes. Andy, I think you said that so well, man. Like, Will Wade has proven he can win wherever he's at. He turned that around so quickly at McNeese and getting their first ever NCAA tournament win in program history. Speaking of can win anywhere, Andy, that's my pick. Ben McCollum.
Yeah.
Heading to Iowa after just 1 year at Drake. If I'm being honest, I'm more worried about his ability to be successful at Iowa than his ability to be successful in general.
Yeah.
Great coaches, Andy. You said this about Will Wade. Going to win. Wherever they are, they're going to find a way to do it. McCollum, it's the D2 story. Had been at Northwest Missouri State, started there in 2009, the 2009-10 season. In his first 4 years, finished first in the conference once, was 22-7, 15-5 that year, made the D2 playoffs, lost in the first round. The next year kind of reverted back, but then, my man, it was on, Andy. After that, 11 more years at Northwest Missouri State, starting in 2013-14 all the way up through 23-24. They won their conference outright 9 times, which, funny enough, there's a D2 school literally 5 minutes from where I sit that's in that same conference. So they finished outright first in the conference 9 times, tied for first the other 2 years, made the NCAA Division II tournament every year for those final 11 years, won the whole blessed thing 4 times, made the Sweet 16 4 other times, lost in the second round once, the first round once, and got COVIDed once. So, I mean, just crazy levels of success there. Finished with an 81.3 win percentage overall, 79% overall in conference. He gets the Drake job, goes there last year after Darren DeVries goes off to West Virginia. Wildly successful this year at Drake, 31 wins, 17-3 in the Missouri Valley Conference, first place there, gets the win over Mizzou before falling to near Final Four team Texas Tech. Did it, as we talked about so often, with 4 D2 players starting in that lineup for Drake. This dude can coach and win anywhere he's at. And I love, Andy, that we're now in an era as he moves on to Iowa where guys get a chance if they're winners, right? Like, you can win. That means you're a winning coach. Let's see if it can work at the D1 level. There's no more like, you're a D2 winner. I don't think it'll work on the D1 level. You don't have the recruiting ties and all these. Dude, if you can win, make it happen. That's what the portal era is. If you can flat out coach, if you can get the best out of your guys, if you're a good human being, right? Like, let's set you up with everything you need from an NIL standpoint, all the resources, and let you go to work. And I really think like he is going to be able to do that. Fran McCaffrey was fine at Iowa. They had some good years. But it is a place that's doable to win. The Big Ten has the deepest resources, essentially tied with SEC for that. And then I got to be honest, I'm just super excited to see how Bennett Sturts comes to the Power 5 level, just like the year before. Tucker DeVries goes from Drake up to West Virginia. We didn't get to see much of him because of his injury, but I just think this is a slam dunk. This is a great get for Iowa. Don't wait. Like, he's been there's no reason to like, well, is this just a flash in the pan this 1 year at Drake? He's done it forever at Northwest Missouri. You don't need to see it. You've already seen it. I think this is a great hire by the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think the ACC and the Big Ten are the 2 conferences that have had the most promising, potentially successful coaching changes this offseason. Obviously, we talked about McCollum, we talked about Wade. Brian Odom at Virginia, I think, is going to do great things. I'm excited. In terms of a new head coach, Jay Lucas is somebody I'm really interested in at Miami, how that goes. And then in the Big Ten, you got Nico Medved going to Minnesota. I think that's a great hire. Darren DeVries, of course, we mentioned him going to Indiana. I think that's a great hire as well. So I'm really excited about. And Buzz, yeah, of course, can't forget Buzz going to Maryland. So I think there's a lot of excitement about those two. I mean, and the Big East has some fun hires too. Like there's a lot of fun hires in college basketball, but those are two conferences that I think have really done a good job with the hiring that they've had so far this offseason. I don't think we'll see too many more coaching changes, although we got a few open jobs out there. So we'll see kind of what changes. I'm sure we'll kind of come back to these conversations as we kind of get a better sense of how these rosters are coming together. But Isaac, Power 5 programs, they're not the only ones who are making hires. And I want to talk about a couple new faces at the mid-major level. And in fact, after we've both made our selections, we're going to be talking about the Mountain West. Let's just put it that way. Well, no more spoilers. We're both talking about Mountain West schools and the coaching hires that they made. That coming up here in just a second. But first, Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. And now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress and can go focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, Isaac, continuing our conversation on some of our favorite coaching hires so far in this, as we said, slower spinning coaching carousel as we're winding down on those coaching changes. And we're going to talk about a few mid-major coaching changes that we're a big fan of. And I'm going to let you tee it off with the coach that used to be in the aforementioned ACC, but is now taking a new job after a couple of years away. Talk to us about this hire.
Yeah, Andy. I mean, honestly, I thought since I was talking to Iowa, I should probably talk about Fran McCaffrey going to Penn. That's the only logical place for me to hit this, right? No, which I do think. I think that'll go well. But I'm going to go with Josh Pastner heading off to UNLV. Obviously, he's been out of coaching the past couple years. Has been on the media side of things. We've seen a couple people do that. Either go to media and come back, or be in media and then start into coaching. And so that's a thing.
The Doug Gottlieb effect, yeah.
Yeah, hey, there you go. It's funny, I guess, as I say it, as somebody who covers the Tar Heels, I've seen it both on the football and basketball side.
That's true, yeah.
Mac Brown going into media and then back to coaching, and Hubert Davis moving from media. Anyway, Josh Pastner. The only reason I voted for him is because I'm hoping he will bring his COVID face mask to Las Vegas. And man, I mean, just what a dentist dream, Andy, that's what we're looking for here. No, I like this move. Josh Pastner to UNLV. Here is my one hesitation. He started so strong at Memphis, right? When he came in there, following up for Cal as he went off to Kentucky. I mean, never fewer than 24 wins. In his first 4 years there while they were in the Conference USA. Then Memphis transitions over to the AAC and the wins kind of start to wane. They go from 3rd to 5th to 7th in the conference standings in those 3 years. He somehow still parlays it all into a Georgia Tech job where things started good and then never had more than 20 wins for the rest of his time there. That said, Georgia Tech's a hard place to win. I mean, let's be honest about that. I think going to UNLV after having had a couple years in media to gain just a little bit of different perspective, like there's just something to that. When you pull yourself away from it, you learn more about every program, right? Because as an analyst in media, he gets to connect with all these coaches, see what they're doing, see what he wants to add to his repertoire as a coach, what he wouldn't do, what he would change from when he had initially done it. And I do think that time is going to be really instructive for him and is going to allow him to have good success at UNLV as part of the Mountain West. One thing to keep in mind, we're going to have one more year of the Mountain West as it is, and then a bunch of schools go off to be part of the newly reformed Pac-12. UNLV is staying in the Mountain West. So that's just going to be an interesting dynamic with this as well, Andy. But I really do think this is a successful opportunity for him. Has the Arizona background, which is that part of the country. I think that plays into it as well. Because as I said with Ben McCollum, you don't have to have the background in that geography to recruit well, but it doesn't hurt. Let's acknowledge that as well. And so I think this should be a good fit, and we'll see how things pan out. Andy?
Yeah, I'm going with a coach who also is in the Mountain West Conference and will also remain in the Mountain West Conference after the conference gets realigned following the moves to the Pac-12. That is New Mexico. Excuse me. Eric Olen heading over to New Mexico, replacing Richard Pitino, who's of course going to Xavier. Very intrigued by that, by the way. Conference as his dad, Rick Pitino. That should be a lot of fun. But I wanted to focus on the other side of this conversation because a lot of what we said about Ben McCollum, I think, is applicable in a lot of ways to Eric Olen, a coach who had a ton of success at UC San Diego. And he was at UC San Diego prior to them transitioning up to D1. But he's been there since they've been at the D1 level. He's, of course, been there the last 5 years. They've gone 81-63. This is a very small school. Again, a school that's only been a Division I school for a half decade. They went 30-46 in his first 3 years. But again, 30-46 for a program that just transitioned to D1. It's not great, but it's also not terrible.
Yeah.
And then in their last two most recent seasons, UC San Diego went 51-17.
Sheesh.
In 23-24, they went 21-12. And this past year, with a full-on breakout season, when they're eligible for the NCAA tournament, coach said, all right, let us lock it in and get it done. They went 30-5. They won the Big West regular season. They won the Big West Conference tournament. They were a 12 seed who lost by one single possession to the Michigan Wolverines, 68-65. And yes, that game wasn't super close until the end. I realized that that score is a tiny bit misleading for folks who watched that game. But at the end of the day, they still lost by 3 points to a very, very good Michigan team in their first ever NCAA tournament appearance as a 12 seed. Really impressive stuff with Coach Olen. He's, again, just like Ben McCollum, he's won. He's won at the D2 level. He's won at the D1 level. He has proven he can take a program that is very small, that has limited resources, that's in a conference in the Big West, that as much as we desperately wanted to see a two-bid Big West with them and UC Irvine, who were both had NCAA tournament caliber resumes last year, I don't think we were going to get it. I don't think the committee views the Big West as a conference that realistically gets two teams in. This was as close as I think we were going to get. Unfortunately, I mean, this team, again, obviously they made it because they won the conference tournament, but they were 39th at KenPom. I mean, this team,
they were in bubble talk.
Right. They had bubble talk for a good reason. They were 30th in adjusted defensive efficiency. His team, they play a slow pace. They play very good defense. They're an efficient offensive team, and they generate a buttload of turnovers. Isaac, they were 5th highest rate of generating turnovers in the country, 4th highest rate of getting steals in the country. This coaching staff was electric at UC San Diego. They're going to do great in a Mountain West that is known for its physicality, known for its defense. I know the conference is changing very soon, and Boise State and San Diego State, who kind of carry part of that reputation, are going to be gone. But I think Olen's going to have a ton of success in the Mountain West, even on a team that lost Donovan Dent to UCLA, that lost True Washington to Miami, that lost 2 of their international players, followed Coach Pitino to Xavier. Olen brought Chris Howell with him from UC San Diego. He wasn't one of their best players necessarily, but he averaged about 6 points, 3 assists per game. So they got a little bit of depth coming back, but I'm really interested to see how he does in terms of adding talent and how much New Mexico can help, get him some NIL money to keep that program competitive. But just like you said with McCollum, if he gets a roster that he can work with, he's going to win basketball games because it's what he's done his entire career.
Man, really excited to see that, Andy. I'm with you. I think he's going to be great in the Mountain West. Should be a lot of fun. Now, we're going to switch gears away from the coaching carousel here and look ahead to one of our favorite times in the college basketball calendar, Thanksgiving week and MTEs. Andy, we had seen the potential beginning of the death of MTEs, or I should specify traditional MTEs, last year. And I don't know about you, but it feels to me like the fall off has been even quicker than any of us anticipated. We'll unpack it and explain what we mean in just a second. John Rothstein, one of the best in our biz, one of the most I don't see how this man does everything he does, Andy. He must be tireless or have multiple versions of himself. I don't know what's happening. But on Wednesday, Andy, on Twitter, John Rothstein report, like he's always, all off season, he's always putting out roster stuff and MTE stuff. And he said, I'm going to quote it because I want to get this wording specific and exact. The 2025 Battle for Atlantis is currently expected to feature the following teams per sources. And he lists off the 8 teams part of the field: Virginia Tech, St. Mary's, Vanderbilt, South Florida, VCU, Colorado State, Western Kentucky, Wichita State. And then at the end, Andy, he said, quote, Ohio State is no longer expected to be in the event, end quote. Andy, there's a lot that goes into this whole MTE conversation we've been having, multi-team event. Mm-hmm. What, I mean, literally just from this tweet, what are some things that we learn or can glean or discern about the current state of MTEs as we have loved them in throughout time?
Power 5 conferences don't want to do it. I think that's the pretty simple explanation here. I mean, you're looking at a group of, frankly, if this were a tournament where Power 5 conferences, Power 5 teams were not allowed in it, it would be a list of 6 really, really good mid-major teams.
That's obviously so true.
You have Vanderbilt and Virginia Tech being the 2 power conference teams that are in here, but St. Mary's, one of the best, VCU, one of the best, Colorado State, one of the best. South Florida's had some history, recent success. Obviously, they stumbled a little bit last year following the passing of their coach, Abdul-Rahim, but a program that's in a great conference and has had success. Wichita State has had a ton of success, albeit not as much recently. And same with Western Kentucky. I mean, like all these teams have had NCAA tournament success in the not too distant past, and are some of the most consistently great programs that are not at the Power 5 level. But that's not what typically makes up the Battle for Atlantis. And your 2 power conference teams, one of them is Vanderbilt, who, yes, was good last year under Mark Byington, but does not have a lot of historic basketball success. The other one's Virginia Tech, who's flat out bad. Was one of the worst power conference teams in college. They may have been the worst. I've seen Hall might have caught them by the end of the year, but Virginia Tech was not good last year. And so this is a collection of 6 good mid-majors, a couple very good teams. St. Mary's kind of being the team that carries it, I think. A good mid-major, or a good power team from last year in Vanderbilt. And that's it. I mean, it's just not. And I mean, the last part, Ohio State no longer expected. Like, yeah, if they saw this was the rest of the field, I don't really blame them for leaving out. Like, they don't get anything from this. Like, if you don't win it, it's a failure. And if you win it, it doesn't really, like, if you beat St. Mary's, that's a nice win. But like, that's kind of it. So I don't blame Ohio State for doing that. And obviously, we'll get into it more. We know that the Players Era Festival and the moves of these events starting to try to prioritize getting you some money for potentially participating. That's a huge part of it. And then I think a lot of coaches are just wanting to move away from committing to 3 non-conference games when their conferences are bloated. The Big Ten's bigger, the SEC's a little bit bigger, the ACC's huge. Like, these conferences don't want to, these teams don't want to commit multiple of their non-conference games to an event, especially an event where teams might drop out at the last minute and you might end up with a field that looks kind of like this. So I get why it's happening, but man, you compare this to previous Battle for Atlantis fields and it's pretty sad.
Yep. Andy, also quick trivia to your thing about Virginia Tech being the lowest rated power conference team. I'm going to use the final net results from last year. Virginia Tech is not the worst, although Seton Hall there were 3 teams outside the top 200. From the power conference structure. Seton Hall is one of them. They were second worst at 211. The other 2 are from the same conference, and neither of them are Virginia Tech. Go.
Ooh, neither of them are Virginia Tech, but they're both from the ACC?
Yes.
Okay, it's got to be Miami.
Miami was the worst team net ranked in the Power 5 structure, 225th.
That's really bad. So Boston College has to be
there. It is 202nd.
Yeah.
Yep.
What a disaster of a bottom half of that conference last year.
That's a whole other offseason conversation we need to have, Andy Patton.
I'm sure we will.
But yeah, I mean, so I had quote tweeted Rothstein's tweet about this, and it just said kind of what you talked about there. The Battle for Atlantis is headlined by St. Mary's and Vandy, when we typically see it being headlined by either a true on blue blood or very close to it. And secondly, as you said, the fact that he said currently expected to feature, like that's crazy. And someone replied to what I said and said, hey, are MTEs dead? And this is a great question to ask. Andy, my response to that is MTEs are not dead, because Players Era Festival is an MTE.
Right.
From a technical definition standpoint, it is a multi-team event. It's just that it's not an MTE in the traditional come to our tropic exotic locale and play basketball games for free sense, right? So I think what we do need to say is that MTEs that operate in a pre-NIL era manner, a MTE that can't or won't pivot, they are either going to die or become a shell of what they were. As you said, if we're looking at this as like, hey, let's have a great mid-major event, boy, that's exactly what this battle, like, I'm excited about this. But Johnny Q, random college basketball fan, is not going to be dialed in on this Battle for Atlanta's field on Thanksgiving week. They're just not, because of what Players Era Festival is.
Yeah.
And I don't go ahead.
I was going to say, I looking at the previous fields, I mean, it's so obvious how much of a drop off this
and
is.
how quick and instantaneous.
Right. Yeah. Last year's field had Gonzaga, Louisville, Indiana, Arizona among the teams in it. The year before that, North Carolina, Villanova were both in it. Michigan, Memphis were in it. The year before that, Kansas was in it. Tennessee was in it. Wisconsin was in it. The year before that, Michigan State and UConn and Auburn and Baylor were in it. The year before that, there was not actually a tournament because of COVID, but Duke was supposed to be in it. A&M, Creighton, Ohio State, like just and even last year's field, which was a little bit weaker than normal, Creighton dropped out at the last minute and was replaced by Providence. Creighton being in that tournament with Arizona and Gonzaga and Louisville and Indiana, like if that's considered a weak year, that is so much better than Providence the we're getting this year. It's so much different.
Providence and Davidson, who were the worst two teams in the field last year, would have been right at the top of it this year, or close, but typically there's like one mid-major, maybe two. Yeah. And with no disrespect to mid-major, it's just, let's just be honest about that. Like, you had Louisville, Indiana, Gonzaga, like what, 5-6 of those teams made the NCAA tournament last year? Yeah. Well, and Indiana probably should have.
Right.
And West Virginia probably should have. Oh, wow. Too, good grief, Andy. Yeah. But we had a bunch of like bubble level team. I mean, it's just, it's insane. But you contrast this, Virginia Tech, St. Mary's, Vandy, South Florida, VCU, Colorado State, Western Kentucky, Wichita State, with looking at the Players Era Festival in 2025. And then what they're planning to do even beyond that is they expand in 2026? They're expanding to 32.
That's their hope. Yeah.
Which is like, what did they talk about?
Death sentence. I mean, that's a full-on, straight-up death sentence.
Full on. Unless Maui, unless Battle for Atlantis and their Bad Boy Mowers affiliation and everyone else can find a way to do what Players Era is doing. And I would compare it to teams who aren't fully embracing the transfer portal and NIL because they want to hold on to like what college basketball has been, which we love. We absolutely love that, and we wish it could be that. But if you can't find a way as a team to build a roster by embracing the portal and NIL, you will not succeed,
right? In
my opinion. And the same is true of these MTEs.
Yeah, I mean, the field for the Players Era Festival this in 2025 is ridiculous. And we're talking 8 of the top 16 seeded teams from this NCAA tournament. 2 1 seeds, Auburn and Houston from last year. 3 2 seeds, St. John's, Alabama, Tennessee from last year. 1 3 seed in Iowa State. A pair of 5 seeds in Michigan and Oregon. So I guess 8 of the top 20. There's no 4 seeds. Regardless, 13 of the 18 teams that are currently in the Players Era Festival, 13 of those 18 were in the NCAA tournament last year. The ones that weren't are teams like Notre Dame and Rutgers and St. Joe's, which is kind of one of the very few sort of anomalies, even UNLV, which seems like an anomaly, except that it's in Vegas. So whatever, like it makes sense that they're in the field.
We're gonna get a Pastner mask
at Players Era. And UNLV would be like a top half team in the current Battle for Atlantis. Like if we're being honest, so would St. Joe's. Like they probably would be at the top of that or around the top of that behind St. Mary's, Vandy, and some of those top teams. But it's just such a stark difference. And again, to reiterate, for what the Players Era Festival did last year, every one of these teams got $1 million. And if you won it, you got an extra $1 million. Like that is how this happened. And the conversations that were happening last offseason, I know Matt Norlander did a lot of great interviews. They did some, the Candid Coaches series that they do at CBS where they interviewed coaches anonymously. A lot of them said, like, I think there was one quote that said, like, I would play in the parking lot of the Mandalay Bay if my team would get us $1 million. Like, I don't, like, it doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter that it's not the fun event, you know, the Maui trip or whatever. If you're going to give us $1 million in NIL money, we need that. So to me, that just feels like unless like you said, unless they're going to do this, unless Maui and Atlantis are going to do this, this is probably going to be the end of those traditional MTEs, or at least they're going to look a lot different going forward. They may not die, but they may not look anywhere close to what they used to. It's kind of a sad day for college basketball in a lot of ways. Isaac, we're going to wrap it up on a sad note. We're going to wrap up today's show on a bit of a depressing note with the MTEs in the future there. We'll continue to talk about this as we see how these fields come together. We're also going to continue to talk about the coaching carousel and, of course, come back to more transfer portal conversation as they happen throughout this offseason. But that is going to wrap it up for us today and for this week here on Locked On College Basketball. So as always, we want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Popes. Cheers to the Mick Bruins, and have a fantastic weekend. And until next time, peace out.